Okay, so we have to look at reality, and reality is, first of all, my name is Rabbi Zev Weinberg. I'm very proud that I was the rabbi for Unity Coalition. Unfortunately, the founder passed away and pretty much folded, but it was a group of 40 million Americans, grassroots movement, over 200 organizations in which we supported a safe and secure Israel and a democracy. And I founded the partyofus.org, which is basically to create unity in government functionality, which is something that everybody wants. In fact, everybody around the world is desperate for good governments. And so the first thing we have to understand is, what do people really care about? Because it's very easy for a small group of people to make a lot of noise. People don't like to get shamed, and that's how radicals take over. That's how communism took over Russia. It killed only about 50 million people. It impoverished at least 100 million people. A disaster of epic proportions. That's what happened in Venezuela. It's a disaster. And that is what is happening in America. And if you don't take my word for it, take the word of all the people who lived under communism and see that it is going on in front of our faces. So we have to deal with three realities. The first reality is, what is the positive direction? The second reality is, what is the negative direction? And the third reality is, what can we do to get there? So to begin with, the first reality is, and this is this is super critical. Now, let's begin with why it's super critical. Never before in human history. Now, there are very smart people. I'm not totally stupid. I've written over 75,000 blogs. I've written about 20 books. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that I never considered myself smart, but I just realized I'm not totally stupid. But there are people that are infinitely smarter than me. I have a friend, for example, Alex Fine. Alex Fine, apart from being a wonderful human being and a genius, he was the top student in the top university in Moscow studying physics. And if anybody knows about Russia, they're really into their mathematics, into their physics. They put a lot of effort and energy into this stuff. So we're talking about people, and then he says to me, I'm a nothing. There were people in my school, they were really smart. So in other words, there are people that they're really super geniuses, and usually these people, they're like the physics guys, you know, the guys that Einstein, they make the atomic bombs and energy and stuff like that. Well, it turns out that Einstein, being such a genius, was also a bit of an idiot. And the reason he's an idiot, and it is in his own words, I read a book called Out of My Later Years, he said that had he realized effectively, I don't remember the quote exactly, had he realized that it's not the bomb that goes off, it's the heart that pushes the button, better that he should have been a watchmaker. You hear that? Einstein saying, I would have been better off being a watchmaker than one of the greatest physicists. You know why? Because he revealed the secret of how to blow up the world, which, just to give you an example, Pakistan, a country according to Pew, has 90% radicals, which means that they believe, these are called the Salafists, these are the Muslims that literally take the Quran seriously. I'm a religious Jew. I take the Bible seriously. They take the Quran seriously. 700 million out of 1.4 billion Muslims are Salafists. That's traditional. Well, if you take the Quran actually seriously, you end up being a terrorist. And the reason you end up being a terrorist is because it says very clearly in the Quran, and please, I'd like you to read the Quran. Do not take my word for it. Please fact check this. Read the entire Quran. It says over 30 times clearly, kill the Jew, kill the Christian. You know why? Because okay, now I want to be very, very clear. My purpose is to create unity. However, we also have to address what are the most important issues of the day. And if you have a country like Pakistan, which is 90%, that's out of 200 million, radical, supporting suicide bombing, well, what's to stop a single individual? I don't want to create fear, so I'm not going to go throughout the entire scenario. I'm just going to say that they already have 180 nuclear bombs, and they're helping Iran, which is certainly a totally radical country, which has created an uprising in Yemen, has created an uprising in Hamas, and has created an uprising all over. I mean, they had their Shiite militias in Iraq, which murdered many Americans. Of course, they're the supporters of the Shiite Syria. And of course, they've basically taken over Lebanon through the Hezbollah. And of course, they've done terrorist actions. It's the largest state sponsor of terror. So that's just, one of our good friends, which of course, Obama being such a wonderful liberal, he wrote them a letter saying, we're not going to attack you. He made a Hunda. If you're not familiar with the Hunda, please look that up. 10-year agreement, which allows them basically, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, they don't have to do anything. They just have to keep the agreement and they'll have a bomb, which the 10 years is about up, and they'll have as many bombs as they want to do what? Well, my dear friends, one of my fortes is trying to figure out why people do what they do. So it took me 2 years. I wanted to understand, why does a country like Iran that's flush with oil, they don't need nuclear energy? Well, I finally asked an Iranian, and the Iranians hate their government. The government oppresses them. The Iranian people are amazing people. Anybody that knows anything about the Iranians, the Persians, they are really dignified. Those are amazing, special people. And he told me very clearly, he says, the government believes, they're radical clerics, they believe that when the world will be filled with blood up to horses' knee, the Messiah will come. Well, I've got news for you bastards in Iran. It won't work. God is protecting the world, and before he allows you to destroy the Jews and the good people, you're going to die. And that's a promise, that's for sure. However, the main point that I want to say here is that we have to be rational. We have to be normal. Now, I don't want to say who, but I know somebody that gave the advice to President Trump to make peace with North Korea. And I want you to know that I think that was a good idea. And I'll tell you why that was a good idea. Because the North Korean is not somebody that has a suicide mission. One of the most amazing brains when it comes to understanding Islam, his name is, what was his name? His name is Bernard Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. And he is a Jew, actually. He's from England, one of the top guys. And he said, no, listen very carefully to this. This is the difference between why it worked when Russia and America were poised against each other with thousands of nukes, but why a single nuke in the hand of Iran is dangerous for the world. Because the Russians were secular people. They liked to live. The Iranians are religious people, at least the clerics that are running the country. And they like to die. I know it's very hard to understand this. But the Islamic faith, as many faiths, they don't believe that this world is a place to live in. This world is a gateway to heaven. And there is only one way that you're absolutely guaranteed to get your 72 virgins in Muhammad's brothel above, and apologize to the Muslims. I have a lot of Muslims friends and I love you, but it sounds to me that's what's the offer. And that is if you not murder someone. That's not how you get to heaven. If you get killed in jihad. In other words, that's why the terrorists, they blow themselves up, because the way they get to heaven is by killing themselves. Very important to understand this. So, the first thing that we have to do is we have to immediately and I've taken a national poll, the majority of America wants this, do not give nuclear technology to Iran. And I don't know if this is true, I saw it on the internet, so you can't believe it, but I'm just going to say it, that actually the Iranians, they got the plans from the CIA on how to actually build their facility. And we all know that Obama is very deeply involved in the CIA. So the point is, it's like, do you have a death wish? These people want to kill you. And this is a mistake that America, and I think the CIA, make all the time. Because what we do, and it's really quite amazing, is we are naive. And we go to people that are radicals, and we say, oh, we're going to help you get rid of, I don't know, Saddam Hussein. And then it turns out that Al-Qaeda actually don't like us either. And so we empower the enemy of our enemy, and then the enemy of our enemy becomes our enemy. Because they see us as the big Satan. That is how they see, and it's so hard for the Western mind to see it. Even the Christian mind, because the Christian mind sees the other person as a potential convert. So they see them first and foremost as a human being. They go to Africa, they're converting people. The Muslim mindset, certainly the more radical you get, they see the other person as a potential enemy. And there are many, many greater experts than I am. All I'm saying is that the only reason you have a government, and particularly you have an army, is to protect you from death. And how do you get protected from death? You make sure that the people that want to kill you and actually want you to kill them back don't have this little button that they can press that allows you to die. And this is not like some kind of hocus pocus things, because these real geniuses, much greater than even my great friend Alex Fine, they have created what's called the atomic clock. Just look at it, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, because they regretted unleashing this information. And it turns out they've put us, I don't know what the most recent, it was about a year ago that I checked it, about 100 seconds to like kaboom. And they do some serious studies here. It's not like just stupid stuff. So number one, the president of the United States, the government of the world, the Western governments that most of them have lost their mind. They're basically weak people. I mean, see Netanyahu, Trump, to his credit, was also strong, but they're weak people. And by the way, if in case you think that I'm like maybe a radical, well, the Arabs that understand Islam very well, and many of them are quite radical in their own way, they're deathly afraid of Iran because they know the problem. So we're not talking about something which is like hocus pocus. We're talking about the people that are on the ground, that are the governments, that they know what's going on, and they're deathly afraid. That's why they're probably making peace with Israel, because they think Israel is the only salvation that they have. My friends, the world needs, first and foremost, safety. And in order to be safe, you don't give criminals, you don't give people that believe that their death through killing you and you killing them back is a mitzvah, it's going to get them into heaven, that's their whole goal in life. You don't give them nukes. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is that we are actually in the best times in human history. Anybody that has any objective knowledge knows that your educational standards today, your medicine, your quality of life, on all factors, we are so much better off. So why is it that the Gallup poll that has started this kind of international stress finds 50% of Americans? Now, there's one of their other polls is that there are 700 million adults in the world that want to immigrate. I'm sure they'll take with them at least 700 million children. That means that 30% of the world would like to come to America. So why are the Americans in America nervous when everybody wants to just get to America? And the reason, I think, is primarily because of Obama. You see, Obama saw the world from, he was brought up in Indonesia, in a Muslim country, and these are his words, these are not my words, these are his words, that the main reason he became the president is because he was brought up in a country which had a negative view of America. So, in other words, he was trying to change America to be a person that these negative people will like. Well, maybe they had a negative view because their religion for 1400 years had a negative view of everyone else. And so therefore, all this kind of hate to America, it's rife, it's in the schools, it's in the universities, it's in everything. This, before this was a fringe element. I spoke to a Jew, Amos Leitner. Amos Leitner was listen to this. He was a guy who saw Hitler come into Austria. The first country that Hitler took over was Austria. He saw Hitler come in, and he managed to escape with his mother, and he became a soldier for the British. He became a soldier for the Haganah, soldier for many years. A very bright guy, a guy that was studying history his entire life. This was only recently. He recently passed away, and I asked him, Amos, what's going on in the world? He says, we are, I don't remember the exact term, he was like, we're in the Mentions era. The Mentions was before the communists, I don't know the exact thing, but basically it began, I didn't even know this, in the universities. The brilliant professors came up with a brilliant idea from a guy called Karl Marx, the guy that never worked in his life, who was going to tell the whole world how to work. An amazing concept. And now I've been a professor in university. I was a lecturer of linguistics. Professors, I mean, unless you're dealing with hard science, something that you can prove. Okay, water boils at 212. But when you're dealing with humanities, it's a bunch of crap. Got people that are being paid. In fact, you can't even fire them after 9 years. And they sit around and it's like a Disneyland for intellects. That's all it is. Frankly, they're not even so smart. And what they really are is they're part of this cult. And this cult is this ideology that they're great. Whenever you have an ideology, 27, again, this is Pew, these are absolutely true, nonpartisan polls. Pew took a massive poll. 27% of the country that vote Democrats. So there are 4 types of Republicans, 4 types of Democrats. 10% of the country don't vote at all. But 27%, that's a large figure. There's 6% of Republicans that you could call them, if you want, Trump, Trump groupies. But there are 27% that you can call them Obama cult members. They have a single group think. And this group think has been deeply, deeply penetrated and influenced through generations of Russian disinformation. Unless you get the book Disinformation by the head of the Romanian KGB, Ian Pacepa, who is here in the United States, and he defected. The highest ranking general that defected, he personally trained Arafat. This is a great example. You think that there's such a thing as a Palestinian, right? Is there such a thing as a Palestinian? Answer the question for me. Is there such a thing as a Palestinian? So, of course, you said yes. How do you know there's such a thing as a Palestinian? How do you know? So you got it from the media. So the media actually got it from this guy. He trained Arafat. You know, Arafat was killing Jews before Arafat ever said there was a Palestinian. Arafat, by the way, comes from Egypt. He's definitely not a Palestinian. He was part of the Muslim Brotherhood. And he was trained by the Nazis. That's his own admission in BBC Alan Hart's book, Arafat, Terrorist or Peacemaker. He's basically a Nazi. He's an Arab Nazi. That's what they did. They put people in, certainly in Egypt, different places. They trained the Arabs that have as this person, Ian Pacepa, who trained Arafat on this idea to spread this lie that there was such a thing called the Palestinian people. He actually, they said, and it's brilliant stuff. Do not think the Russians are stupid. They're very clever. The ancestral hate. I have a friend. He was a former, literally, he was a terrorist for Arafat. And he told me that this is, anyway, I don't want to put anyone down. The bottom line is this. There are only 3 things that I really want to bring out. The first thing is that you have to have safety. And safety means you have to have no nukes in the hands of nuts. The second thing is you have to have unity. And unity does not mean that everybody has to believe like me. I am a rabbi. I think one of the greatest things that God did in creating Judaism is that as apart to most religions that say it's my way or the highway, Judaism says you can be a perfectly fine human being without being a Jew. I think that's an amazing statement because we don't have to say that everybody has to be like me for them to be okay. Okay, most people are going to say like, you get some people, okay, we have to convert them. Others, we have to kill them. Others, let's say a bit of a liberal kind of elitist mindset. Oh, we just feel so bad for these people. You know, let's just give them everything because whatever, we just feel bad for them. But there's another way and a better way and a true way to have unity. And that is to understand that as our Jewish sages say, just as our faces are different, so too our attitudes are different. We're all unique. We all grow up in unique circumstances, unique families, and unique civilizations, unique cultures. And in fact, our souls are unique. Even identical twins are unique. We are individuals. And as individuals, we must realize we are part of a greater whole. In ant colony, I heard this from somebody who heard it from an antologist. Did you know that there's such a thing called an antologist? So the antologist said, listen to this, an ant colony is a single organism. You have workers, you have maybe a queen ant or whatever it is, but they work together, and only together can it work. We have to create a democracy that works for all of us. Now, there's always going to be individual opinions that say, oh, I'm the smartest, I'm the best. Every individual thinks that they should run or their opinion is right and everybody should do it. The only way democracy is going to be fair is if we go with the majority. And this is what's sometimes called direct democracy. I like to call it real democracy or consent of the governed. I've taken a national poll. In fact, Pew, which is a much bigger organization than me, has taken an international poll. 66% of the world want direct democracy. In other words, let's focus on the top 10 issues that are really concerning Americans. Those are terrorism, those are healthcare, those are social security, those are the economy. These are the issues, obviously, now with coronavirus. Focus on the issues. Then go back to the people and say to the people, okay, guys, I came up with a solution. And by the way, this was Obama's mistake with healthcare. Healthcare has to be solved. Every American definitely needs to have healthcare. There's no question about it. However, don't go to people and ram it down their throat. Don't be a dictator. Go to the American people and say, guys, we researched the solution and 53% of America agrees with us. So we're going to implement the solution. If he would have just done that one thing, instead of coming as a dictator, come as a leader, come as a kind of father figure to the people and say, okay, guys, this is a big problem. Most Americans want it solved. We've done the research, and this is something that 53% of Americans agree to. Who's going to say no? You could have passed it. You wouldn't have the Republicans going against it. This is the only way to create unity. But also unity has to be within us. I can't look at you and be jealous of you. I have to look at you and say you are something that I am not. And that is a good thing because I am something that you are not. You know what? We have in common that we're humans, but I'm gifted in what I am gifted in, and you are gifted in what you are gifted in. And just purely as a practical example, I'm a rabbi. I'm really gifted in Judaism and Jewish mysticism and teaching, but that's about my only gift. I can't sing very well. I can't do business very well. I'm really not gifted in 1,000 other fields. But in this field, I'm really gifted. And this is an important field. Field of morality, the field of inspiration. It's a good field. There are people that are gifted therapists, gifted mothers, gifted business people. We need all these people. You know, if people, this thing from disinformation against companies. Really? Do you use an iPhone? Do you use an Android? You don't want companies? I mean, get real. Wake up. So the point is, we have to see how we complement each other. Not that I am better than you, and therefore I get to use every single dictatorial process. Forget about the country, forget about the whole thing, but I am the law. You know, that's exactly what Obama brought to the country. And with all due respect, I know a lot of people are not going to like me on either side for saying this, but in a way, Trump followed that with these executive orders. You know, I'm an American. I never once heard about executive orders till Obama. The guy put out 400 executive orders. Suddenly the president becomes a dictator. It's not okay. The president has to be a leader. He has to galvanize the people. He has to come to the people. Ronald Reagan was once told, the people don't agree. He says, okay, we got to talk to the people. We've got to come and say, guys, we're dealing with the issues. This is Abraham Lincoln's democracy. For the people, by the people, from the people. We got to come to the people and say, guys, listen, we the people have a desire, I don't know, healthcare. We, the government, have looked into this, and this is the solution. Do you, the people, agree? You get the Republicans with you, get the Democrats, because who's going to say they're against the majority of America? This is critical. And so the third thing that I want to say, and that is a spiritual thing, and that is as follows. We are in the most amazing times, not only physically. When can we do what we're doing? Right now I'm putting out a video. I've got an idea to put out this video. To be quite frank, I think it came to me to put out this video in that Holy of Holies called the John, and that's where you get all your inspiration from. And immediately, there's subscribers, there are people that are going to see this video. Where could these are miraculous times, these are amazing times, and that's physically, spiritually, it's even more amazing. God, however you want to call him, the Father, the Holy Spirit, in Hebrew we say Ruach HaKodesh, divine spirit. It says that I will pour my spirit on all flesh. We're in a time that 64%, again, these are major nonpartisan polls, 64% of the world believe they have a personal relationship with God. So what does that tell you? We are in the beginning of the Messianic era. And we all thought it's some kind of miraculous era, and I do believe it will be like that. According to Judaism, it's going to be very positive. It's not going to be a death and destruction era. I think we went through that already. It's going to be just a growth and construction era. But different faiths have different beliefs, and I can't speak about anybody else's belief, but what I can speak about is what is the reality today. And these three things are so super critical, because if we do them, we live. Number one is, do not allow people that believe that their death gets them to heaven through you killing them by them killing you first, which is called a nuclear war. And the great scientists are saying that it's very possible very soon, God forbid. So do not allow them to have nukes. Number two, we have to have democracy that unites us, not that divides us. That is done by democracy, direct democracy, real democracy, consent of the governed. We get together, we say, what are the top 10 issues? I mean, these things are already, Gallup polls does it, Pew does it, not exactly as good as Gallup, but they do it as well. Sorry, Pew, but you ask a list of questions and a choice. Gallup gives people a choice in general. But the bottom line is that there are great organizations, nonpartisan organizations, that are doing this already. And we have to create democracy based on the people to create unity. And we have to see ourselves not as conflict, but as complements. I can never be you, and you can never be me. It's impossible. Certainly I can never be a woman, and you can never be a man. I mean, every single part of your DNA has an X or a Y chromosome. Your brains are different. It's just absolute benefit to have different types of brains. We bring different types of abilities to the table. Children need a husband. They need a father. They need a mother. All the studies are showing this. This is the healthiest way. God knew what he was doing when he created this mechanism for marriage, for unity. This is the way you create healthy, stable societies. And we have to look at each and every one of us has to have a good self-esteem. I am chosen by the creator of everything you'll ever see, past, present, future, to play a part in his world. Don't play someone else's part. Figure out your part and be your best, because that is what you and the world need. And last but not least, we really, this is super, super critical, have to also become spiritual. We have to realize that we are not heading for destruction. We're heading for construction. The world was basically a lead up from destruction. The world today is infinitely better than it ever was, physically and spiritually. And therefore we have to embrace the divine voice within us. We have to embrace our destiny. We have to reach out. And this is very important. The means not only don't justify the end, the means reveal the end. People who use shaming and criticism and hate, that is their end goal, because there are many people that are jealous in this world and they want the destruction of the world. Quite literally, what was Hitler? He was a jealous person. There was a British spy that was sent to analyze him, and he said he was run by anger. And that's exactly what he was run by. Hitler's only joy was imagining other people's death. That's what he did. And if you even think that it was for Germany, I personally know from a person who became, I don't know, you call him, I don't know if you would call him a spy, but basically after the war, he was very good at languages. He worked for the intelligence services. And he heard this from a general, an American general who he was working for. Hitler ordered the bombing of the factories that made the food for Germany. He didn't want the Germans to live. He was just using the Germans as his pawns to kill other people. He was a murderer, he was a sadist, and he was a malcontent. And there are many malcontents in this world, many people that they have delusional egos, and they think, personally I think Obama was one of them, they think that they should be running the world, and basically they just create all these kind of morons to be their cult members, and then those people spew hate on others, and then that person is happy because there's more hate in the world. And you say, why would a person want hate in the world? Well, he just wrote a book called Dreams of My Father. He felt abandoned, but he didn't feel abandoned and shamed. He felt abandoned and angry. There's a difference, because anger is a frustration, and that anger, as a good friend of mine, Dr. what's his name? He's the head of Coalition for Coalition for Peace, and Dr. Forget his name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is, he said that, anxiety, anger, if a person's depressed, they don't have a lot of energy. But when you do have negative energy, it will explode. It will go somewhere. And that's what happens to these people. This stuff goes somewhere. And so I want to conclude with saying our mission is to have love. I really encourage you. I'm going to put a link to my book, Kabbalah Love. Have love. It's all about, a lot of people have been transformed. You have to have positivity. You have to have love in your life. And we have to be spiritual. We have to see the positive. And when we say the means and the end, if the way you're approaching the problem, and listen to this, because this is the only way you'll know who is true and who is evil, who's trying to construct and who's trying to destruct, because the Germans did not know that Hitler was trying to even destruct Germany, that he was using them to murder because he was a murderer. The only way you know is through one thing: who is trying to unite and who is dividing, whose message wants people to come together, and whose message is about how evil another group is, and we must protect these innocent people from that evil group. Those are the people, like Workers of the World Unite, the evil, burglars, the evil, they were just shooting people that basically didn't have calluses on their hand from work. The evil this, the evil that. Well, actually, as Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kutz said, he said, what's the difference between a lover of truth and a hater of falsehood? He says the lover of truth doesn't rest until he finds the truth. The hater of falsehood will not rest until he finds the falsehood, because one is motivated through love and the other is motivated, unfortunately, through hate.